we're involved with groups, involved with people, involved with music, and begin to see ourselves as a particular way, our self-perception, and our subconscious just accommodated that self-perception and made that self-perception a reality.
I tell my daughter all the time, why I'm so wise? Because I made so many mistakes. We know that. That's where our wisdom comes from. Come on, we were all kids. We all grew up. We all messed up.
And see, a lot of us are in situations today where we say, well, God, how come it was easier before? You know, it seemed easier before, but now it's hard. God, what are you trying to tell me? God's trying to tell you it's time to move. Get up out of that wilderness. That's not where you're supposed to be living.
It seems that most folks are not happy with their type of employment. Miserable. And often that creates a really negative work environment. And one thing about negative, toxic work environments, it's contagious. And so we're going to talk about the contentment in your employment, and if it's just not the place you're supposed to be, how do you move on? Sometimes we get a feeling of stuck. I remember I was in corporate America for about 13 years. NCR, inventory management. 3-piece suit, trench coat, briefcase, that whole 9 yards. And it looked good from the outside. And it was really impressive to a lot of people. But I was miserable. I didn't want to be there. And so I can empathize with that. What's very interesting about jobs is that when we went to apply for the job, when we went to get a job, get the job, and we were being considered for it, we were really excited and thrilled when we were selected. But in time we realized that things are not always what they seem to be from the start. We find ourselves getting discouraged in negative situations. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because really the key to this program, the key to this series of programs is to find contentment in life. And oftentimes, as we discussed last time, there is a discontentment within us. And so that no matter where we go, no matter what job we move on to, or what place we move to, or even what person we end up moving to, we find ourselves, discontent. So sort of like the old thing about falling in love, loving the idea of falling in love. But then in time having to be faced with the stark reality that there was really nothing there at all, okay? And we do that with our jobs sometimes, okay? And so it's very important to recognize if we're not satisfied, to be somewhere for years and years and years not satisfied is a terrible thing. So we're going to discuss two aspects of this thing. The one briefly is that discontentment within ourselves, because we already covered that topic. But it's very important to be able to challenge ourselves to determine, is it me or is it you, right? And so one of the best ways, I think, to come to a conclusion, a proper conclusion, is to look around at your coworkers, okay? Are they just as miserable as you are? Was that toxic environment created before you got there and you stepped into it, or are you part of the creation of that toxic environment, okay? It's very important, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to spend our lives moving from job to job searching for that happiness when really we're dragging the unhappiness, the discontentment along with us. So that's very important to you. How do you look at situations in your life? Are they half full or half empty? Remember, I worked with this company for years that had an overtime list, where if you wanted to work overtime, you signed up for the list. If you didn't want to work overtime, you weren't on that list. But there were times when the situation would be such that even if you didn't want overtime, they'd compel you to work overtime because of the need, or the times when you wanted to work overtime and there wasn't a need, you didn't get to work overtime. So for me, in those situations, I always looked at it. If they were forcing me to come in and work overtime, great, I got to make more money for that next payday. But if they didn't need me to come in to work overtime, great, I get to go home. I get to be off of work. So no matter what happened, I was always content, okay? And so we have to begin to look at life that way, especially in our places of employment. Look for the positive things. I mean, I knew people that if they were asked to come in, they were mad because they wanted to go home. But if they weren't allowed to come in to work overtime, they were mad because they didn't get to make that extra money. So no matter what the situation that was presented before them, they'd always be negative. They would always be discontent. And so when we're trying to find our place of wellness, we have to recognize, is it me or is it you? Okay, is the glass half full or is it half empty? It's the same glass, the same amount of water in that glass. To me, it's half full. To others, it would be half empty. And it's all the same amount. It's a matter of perspective. So what I'm suggesting today, a lot of our discontentment, a lot of our unhappiness is simply a particular perspective that for whatever reason we've chosen to embody, okay? It's very important. I remember years ago, my daughter who's in college now, but when she was about 5 years old, she was a little pudgy little thing, real cute. I'm dad, right? And we were going to Bob Evans to get some lunch or breakfast or something, lunch. And I was trying to watch her weight. And I said to her, we're going to go in there. She loved mashed potatoes. I said, we're going to go in there, but you can't have any mashed potatoes today. And she got so upset. She started crying and crying and crying. It was just me and her that day. So I got down. She was by the passenger door. I got down on my knee and I talked to her. I said, look, honey, give me your hand. She gives me her hand while she's crying. I said, look, these are all the things you can have. You can have green beans. She loved green beans. You can have a biscuit. You can have all the things that she could have. It turned out there were 5 things that were going to be on her plate that she liked that she could have. She's looking at that hand. I said, now give me your other hand. There's only one thing you can't have, and that's mashed potatoes. Now look at how many things you can have, and look how many things you can't have. And immediately, she was happy. Because instead of focusing on the one thing that she couldn't have, I got her focused to look at all the things she did have, okay? And she realized it at 5 years old, and she was totally content. We need to be content as that simple understanding of a child. Rather than look at the things we can't have, look at that it's half empty. We need to look at all the things that we have. How many things that have made us well, and is life really that bad? And so what I'm suggesting is when we look at our job, the job that we really wanted, the job that we were asking for, begging for, we were so thrilled when we got it, why is it so terrible now? And oftentimes it's really not. The job really hasn't changed. We have, okay? And so it's very, very good sometimes to sit down on our knee and look at our hand and look at how many things we do have and how many things we don't have. We're getting that paycheck every other week. Is it enough? Is it? So it may be enough. And you're thrilled on payday. But the rest of the week, why is it you're not happy? Is it you? Now that's the one side, because we do have to challenge that. Challenge ourselves. Is it me? Can I be better? What kind of employee am I? Does everybody like me? Does everybody hate me? Am I mean? I remember this one guy where I worked, he was just a negative and a mean person, just mean to everybody. And he almost took pride in that. He said, I don't like anybody. But there came time in his life at that place of employment where he needed a favor from the upper management. And most people, they would have done that simple favor for. But to him, they just cut him off at the knees, I don't have to help you, so I'm not. So what kind of person are you? Are you an example to others of a positive mindset? And sometimes you have to get your mind off of, sometimes you have to trick yourself psychologically. And this is what we're talking about today, because we want to find contentment in our place of employment. On the other hand, it might be time to move on, but we're still trying to find contentment in our place of employment. How do you look at your function? I think the question is, are you making enough money to satisfy the situation in your life situation? And so you might need to adjust your lifestyle just a bit. I remember this particular company when I started like 29 years ago. They were like just throwing money at us. And people, you're working all the overtime you wanted, making all this money, and people had boats, people had nice homes, they had all this stuff. But the caveat, the warning, signs were everywhere that, eventually this company was going to wise up and find ways to cut their expenses. And it'd be a good idea now, while the going is good, to begin to curtail some of the commitments, some of the financial commitments that have been made. Cut back a little bit. Begin weaning yourself off of the necessity to be living off of overtime. And that's what I did. many folks didn't do that. And then when the company finally did wise up, these guys were stuck out there with these tremendous expenses and no way to make the payments. And that was a terrible place to be. So oftentimes there is some wisdom attached to recognize that every good thing does not last forever. And that sometimes, like that little squirrel that buries those nuts, when the weather is good, recognizing that winter is coming, okay? And there are times where with companies that management is kind of harsh. Management is kind of difficult. Your boss might seem harsh. Your boss might seem unfair, giving you a hard time, right? So you have to find ways to psychologically deal with that, okay? So I was with a company that was really focused on time and production, like most companies are, okay? And so there were particular constraints that would be given to you and particular objectives that needed to be met. And sometimes they seemed unfair. So what would I do? I would better the times that I was given. And so, in effect, I wasn't struggling to meet their time. I wasn't even irritated that they had given me a time that I might not agree with. I had taken the power out of their hands and set my own goals and met my own goals, okay, which were better than theirs at times. And so what I'm trying to share with you, somehow you have to take the authority away from them if they're abusers of authority and just place it on yourself. And this was just my game, my competition against myself that I was playing every day, you see. And to beat my previous time or to do better than I had done before. It was no longer on them, okay? And so there are little tricks we have to play on ourselves because a lot of the issues that we have that make our time miserable is the mental feeling that we're having that is very negative about a place of employment. And sometimes it's not us. Sometimes it is the boss. So there is a way to take that power out of their hands by doing better than what they ask you to do. So they may not be impressed with what you've done because it has taken the power away from them to come harsh on you to make you do what they want you to do. And so that's just a little side note, a little tidbit. Okay, so now what are we going to do if it's just time to leave? Okay, it is time to leave sometimes. I left that company. I left NCR after 13 years. We've been taken over by another company, AT&T. And we were given the opportunity to stay and fight over other positions. I know I was vying for the same position my boss was vying for, so that really wasn't going to fly, especially if I needed a recommendation. All right? But I didn't like that job anyway. I was still doing it. I thought I was going to retire from there, but when that opportunity came, it took me a minute to think about it, but about a week into it, I just took the buyout. I even signed a little document saying, hey, I'll never sue you again. They gave me an extra $5,000 just to promise I wouldn't sue them. I wasn't trying to come back there. And so I left that company with enough money in hand, about 6 months worth of money to cover my expenses. And that was not applying for unemployment. So that was still on the back burner. So I could leave that company. And financially, I knew I was well enough to give me time to find another place of employment, okay? A lot of times folks just get mad and quit. Don't do that. What are you going to do for money? No, the time's going to come. The time is going to come for you to make a move, but if you had cut your expenses, if you lived within your means, from your paycheck, and you weren't simply living from paycheck to paycheck, and you had an ability to maintain your sustenance while you were searching for another job, you could leave. And so that's what I did. When I left, people were telling me I was crazy. My coworkers, they couldn't believe I was just leaving voluntarily like that. But I hated that job. And I knew that it was time to go. Now, I want to give you another caveat, another warning. Drugs and alcohol, wrong thing to do for 2 reasons. One thing, it's an expense. It's an expense that is just too much on your financial spreadsheet. So if you're trying to save money or maintain money, you're just blowing money on a temporary buzz that's going to be gone not too much long later. So just if you're a drug user or an alcohol user, and that is going out at night, partying and all that stuff, which is what I was doing for many years, make a little spreadsheet and begin to log on that spreadsheet how much money you spend. And you're going to find there's a significant amount of your money you're spending, and that might be part of your negative attitude at your workplace or not. Maybe it's time for you to leave. But start saving that money. That's part of the process. That's part of making the way so you can escape. You know, you have to plan your escape. And part of that planning is financial, okay? And so stop that drug use. Stop that alcohol use. Save that money. Won't be buying a lot of those junk food bunchies either. Won't be going out to those clubs every night, just blowing so much more money on even the alcohol that it would cost. You know, you're paying, you know, a proprietor extra money just to be in their place. And you're buying drinks, you're giving tips, and it's just too much money, too much money. So cut that out. And then you're going to find that when it's time to leave, you're going to have enough money. But that buzz, that alcohol, and that weed or whatever it is you're doing is going to be convoluting your thinking. Because we're talking about now we transcended from the place where we found a way to be that just having a good mindset or doing the right thing at work isn't enough. You still want to leave, you know, maybe to progress, maybe to move up the ladder, whatever it is. But so now what do we do after we leave? A lot of times we just chill. You know, we got a little money in our pocket, right? Because we saved up some money. We have enough money to leave, maybe 6 months, 7 months, a year, whatever. So we're just chilling. We're continuing. Then we might pick up the little party, and maybe I'll buy a little weed. Maybe I'll go out tonight. Maybe I'll go out this night. Maybe I'll go to this restaurant. Whatever. Spending that money. That's supposed to be your foundation, your cushion until you find another job. So that's not good. And that buzz isn't going to keep you thinking right. Let me tell you what I did. When you leave a company like that, when you leave your job, I mean, my job, I had to be at work every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you get up around 6:30, whatever time it was, to prepare yourself. Maybe have some breakfast, read the newspaper, do whatever you do, show up for work, do a good day's work, and then go home. Well, when you leave a company, when you're no longer employed because you left and you're looking for another job, you still have a job. Your job is to find a job. And that's every day. That's a 5-day week. So, you know, you could do 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, but I just used, you know, for a template, you know, what I was doing when I was going to work at that job. So every morning I'd still get up at 6:30 in the morning. I'd still get up and have breakfast. I'd get myself already shaved, you know, take care of my business, put a tie on even back in those days. Go and read the newspaper. And then spend the day looking for a job, going here, going there, looking for jobs. That was my job. Once you leave a particular place of employment and you want another job or a better job, you don't have the luxury of not doing anything. You're not on vacation. You have a new job until you get a job, and that job is to find a job, and that's at least a 5-day a week function. Get up at the same time you were getting up before. Get cleaned up. Put on a shirt and a tie or whatever. For nowadays, I mean, I guess it's not a tie. But just get cleaned up, looking good, and then go out looking for jobs, company. In the mornings, when I was working, I'd just be reading the newspaper, just reading the articles in the newspaper, reading the obituaries to see if somebody I knew had kicked off, you know. But now I'm into the want ads. Now I'm looking at the places that were hiring, that were needing employees. And that's what I would focus on. Every day, that was my job. That needs to be your job. That's where many of us fail. You're not on vacation when you leave your job. You have a new job, and that new job is to find a job. And if you have a buzz, it's not going to work. Because when do you get your buzz? During your waking hours. That's the time you're supposed to be looking for a job. That's the time you're supposed to be coherent. Don't get don't get a buzz at night either, because you may not wake up in the right frame of mind. You don't have the luxury to get high. Now, you were smart enough, hopefully, to drop that buzz, to stop the alcohol, stop the weed, whatever it is you're doing, because you realized you were losing money. But now you're in no place to begin spending that money. It's just too easy, though. It's too tempting to begin feeling like you're on vacation when you've left a job, but you're not. You're really in a foot race. I mean, early on, you don't have to be so anxious, but you're in a foot race. You're trying to get to a particular destination, and your money's running out. Almost like those video games where you got this power that as you go on, it's continually running out, or maybe your cell phone or whatever. You don't have unlimited resources. You don't have time for half-stepping. You have one goal, is to get to that destination before your money runs out. Okay, so you don't have time to get high. You don't have money to get high. Just get it together. Because you need to recognize that there's always going to be competition. There's so much competition in everything that we do today. I know I went in the military in the 70s when I was 17 years old, 1976. And it didn't matter what your grades were in high school. It didn't matter what kind of person you were. The military was always ready to take you. But now, man, they're looking at your grades. They're looking at your life. They're looking at what kind of person you are. They're being selective because there's so much competition out there. Everywhere you go, whether it's jobs, whether there's competition. And so recognize that your function, in order to be above the rest, in order to be ahead, in order to get what somebody else is vying for, you have to be better than them, okay? And so education is a powerful thing as well. Education is very important. And I'll tell you from experience, when I was at NCR, I was functioning in a job that was a degreed position, okay? But the old man, he was from the old days, he was hiring. He looked at me, I was fresh out of the military. He said he believed in me, and he hired me and put me in a position that required a degree, okay? I was there for 13 years. He died, life just goes on. But while I was there, that company was offering to pay for college. So although I got my foot in the door into a job that required a college degree, but I didn't have one because of favor I was given that position, I had the opportunity to go to college for free and get that degree while I was in college. Well, guess what? I started a couple times, but then I was like, well, why am I doing this when I have a job that required a degree? So I didn't follow through with it. Little did I know that about a decade and a half, or about a decade later, I was going to leave that position. And then I would go out looking for a job. I went to Reynolds & Reynolds. I was going to Standard Register. I was going to all these different places that were hiring in the positions that I worked. Now, understand this. This is the funny part. I was looking for jobs that were similar to what I was doing, but while I was doing what I was doing, I hated being there. So why am I looking for it? Because I was trying to follow that money. I was trying to get a job in the same place that I was making that money. And I didn't find a job going that route, okay? Mind you, I was used to wearing a three-piece suit, nice shoes, tie, trench coat, briefcase, had a little hat with a little feather in it, that whole 9 yards, right? I couldn't find it. And it was like 5 months later, after I had left NCR, the post office called. From a test I had taken a year earlier while I was still with that company. It was a joke. My brother had called me. It was like a competition. Let's take this postal test, see who's going to do better. I think he did better, by the way. But I just written it off, forgot about it. It was a joke. It was a fluke. Now 5 months later, I get this call from the post office, a letter from the post office. Go down there, interview. I was hired on at the post office. I mean, who would ever think there'd be a mailman? Especially me. But I did it. It was money. And as it turned out, it paid more money than I had made while I was at NCR. My twitch went away. I had a nervous twitch that went away. I was in the middle of like multi-million-dollar deals constantly. Some went awry. I had a twitch. I was also gaining weight. I was overweight. My office at NCR was right across from the snack area. I was like 211 pounds. And so I took that job. And I lost 30 pounds quick. My twitch went away, made more money. I was in great shape. But see, a lot of times we'll have folks that pigeonhole themselves into particular type employment, type jobs. I remember when COVID hit. There was a woman on the news that was complaining because she had lost her job. I mean, this was a professional, college degree person, had lost her job, and she couldn't find a job anywhere in her position, in her field. And I'm like, now you have to understand, I'm like 25 years, after I've been with the post office, in my mind thinking, well, your problem is you're only looking at jobs in the field that you've been involved in. Don't do that. You got to look outside the box that you have created for yourself, which is understandable and all. But you're not going to find yourself in this day and age with competition as it is, and you're not only competing with education people, you're not just competing with people with good records, you're also competing with people who are younger than you. That's a tough one. So don't pigeonhole yourself into only a certain kind of job. My wife is a perfect example. She has college education in purchasing, okay, and appropriate. And she was an entrepreneur. And so when I met her, she was working for a mortgage company. And it was after we got married, or just before we got married, she realized working for a mortgage company, she wanted to own her own mortgage company because she saw the bigger picture. So she left that and she started her own mortgage company, and she was doing very well for like 6 years into our marriage. Then, we had the economy, all that stuff go down, and she left that. Now, years later, we've been married for 25 years now, she owns a preschool. Okay? Now, so get what I'm saying. When I met this woman, she was a mortgage broker. And now she's the owner and principal of a preschool. And she loves it. And when you see her, she's just in it. The kids come up to her, they hug her, they love her, and all that good stuff. She has employees working for her. But I knew her when she was a mortgage broker. So what do you see here? She didn't pigeonhole into one particular type of job. She was flexible. She was fluid. She moved on. You have to be able to move on. Too often we live in the past, and we're not ready to embrace what's for us, okay? I'm saying you gotta let it go. So now I'm gonna zip all the way up to me. Now I want to give you an example in my life that really isn't about looking for a job, but it's about bettering yourself. It's about getting an education. Okay, see, that's very important for all of us. Don't wait like I did, through the opportunities to get an education with a particular company when everything was fine, and then not having that opportunity once I left. Okay, but right now, recognize that if you want to progress up the ladder, especially if you're not too old, better yourself. Remember, in order to be competing in this environment today, you need to be better than the person you're competing with. That's what all the term competition is about. You're competing with someone. You got to be better than them. So the key is there are people all over everywhere that have various degrees, various stages of education. Okay, you can't do anything about what someone else is doing for themselves. Okay, all you have to do is focus on yourself. And what I'm suggesting today is you just need to better yourself. Better yourself. Learn stuff. Be learning. Be in a constant state of learning. Your entire life should be in a state of learning. Forever. There's never a time to stop. Never a time to stop learning. Always learn. So there is the formal education, because that's what you're looking at competition-wise. See, it's very rare you're going to run into guys like I ran into. The old guy his name was P.T. Hendry. I walked in his office. He was kind of overweight, old guy. He was kind of ragged and rugged looking, smoking cigars. He was kind of jacked. He had on suspenders, his stomach hanging over the suspenders, his shirt sleeves rolled up. I mean, he was the picture of the old guy that would be hiring folks. This is the guy that hired me. And because he just figured I had the ability and I had the integrity to handle a job that I wasn't even educationally, qualified for. You're not going to find those anymore. You're going to find companies now that have stacks and stacks of papers of individuals who have actually formal education. Okay, and as they have volunteer work as far as in their extracurricular activities, and they're healthy and they do this and they do that. You have real competition out there. So you have to make yourself marketable. And this is in every aspect of life, but this is what we're talking about right now. It's you're looking for a husband, you're looking for a wife, make yourself marketable. But we're not talking about that right now. But this is for the job. Competition, make yourself marketable, man. First of all, clean up your act. Don't look all crazy. I'm all unshaven, unkempt hair, unkempt clothes, wrinkled, unkempt. Get yourself together, man. Every day, get yourself together. Shave if you're a guy, but get yourself together. Wear perfume, wear cologne. Get yourself together. And get yourself educated. Okay? So if you're in the if you're still in the workplace, go to night school, man. There was a time when online schools were looked down upon. But now these schools recognize as a business that they are, that is very profitable to offer their programs online. All the major schools, man, MIT, to Ohio State, every school has online classes that you could take. Take some classes, man. Shoot, I started when I was 50 years old just to get an associate degree, just for the heck of it. Man, 10 years later, I earned my MBA. I was 60. Man, if you're 30 or if you're 25 or even if you're 40, if I did it, you can do it. And that's night school, man. That was night school. And it's very important. And so you have a head start. So that way, if your job is cool now, but you're kind of, iffy about it, not knowing if you really want to do it or not, well, persevere. Do your job. Make that money. In the meantime, create a plan. And that plan has to include education. And then you just walk that plan out. And when it comes time, man, you can apply through your own company. Look, I have an associate degree now. What's it going to do for me? I have a bachelor's degree now. What's it going to do for me? I have a master's degree. What's it going to do for me? And if they can't do anything for you, you can move to other companies. And so you'll say, yeah, I worked for this company for 10 years. I'm telling you, man. See, one of the negatives, I guess, about being older and getting a degree is when you go to apply for a job and you have a degree now. But then there's a 23-year-old with that, 24-year-old with that same master's degree. But see, you could suggest, in your presentation, in your elevator speech, in your little, additional comment on your resume, that you held down a job while you attended school, a full-time job, and you still persevered and earned this degree. That's impressive. I'm telling you. And that'll make up. That'll make up for your age when you're competing against someone younger than you, okay? And so what I'm suggesting is it's very important. It's very important to better yourself. It's like marketing, man. Market yourself. Yeah, you have to better yourself to be ready for that competition. And lastly, whatever you plant, you're going to grow. Okay? So the planting entails work. Okay? Planting entails putting your hand to do something. I'm not planting, say, for a farmland or whatever, you're digging the holes. Okay? First you're getting all the rocks out, right? You're smoothing it out, then you're digging the holes, and then you're putting the trenches down, and then you're putting the seeds in, then you cover them up, and then you water the seeds, and you put fertilizer on it, and you appreciate the weather conditions, but it takes work. And finally, there's going to be a sprout, and that sprout is going to grow into a plant, and that plant's going to be growing big enough and will give a harvest. But I think a good thing, and that's what you want, is that harvest. You want that result. You want to make a plan, walk it out, and then reap the benefits of it. But what I want to share with you is that harvest. A harvest rarely resembles the seed planted. Okay? So we have to be open enough, not pigeonholing ourselves to be looking for one particular output, but recognizing the opportunity could come in a myriad of ways. Okay? And just simply recognize that. So the whole time, even from the first part of this talk we were given, recognize the strengths within you. Always make sure you have a proper mindset, a positive mindset. Make sure you're the good guy, you're the good person, that people like you. Make sure that you're healthy. Man, as much as an organization will be opening up for a lawsuit, if an individual walks in there all overweight and unhealthy looking, and the job goes to the sharp-dressed, sharp-looking, healthy person, they're not going to tell you that's why they picked them. But if you got to pick between 5 people and one person is sharp and the rest of their attributes are the same as all the other candidates, who are you going to pick? It's like human nature. And so spend the time getting yourself together. So I look at it this: if you're in a job right now that you're not happy with, you should still be taking care of yourself. Get yourself together, because you don't know what the future holds. And if you're in a job that you don't quite like, we quit smoking that weed, we quit doing the drugs, we quit going out, we're saving the money. So while we're saving money, let's be getting ourselves in shape. Let's be changing our diet, eating healthy, exercising every day, getting ourselves together. So while we're saving the money, because the money isn't there yet for us to leave, while we're saving the money, we're also getting ourselves in shape, It'll probably take a while to save up that money, but it'll take a while to get you in shape. At the particular right time, you'll have the money and you'll be in shape. You can leave that job. And I guarantee you, if you're looking good and if you're healthy, you're going to be thinking right, you're going to be thinking positive. You're also going to be impressing whoever it is you're going to get a job before. When they look at you, they look at your resume, they see that you're well, they see that you have an education, they see that you're healthy. Man, you've bettered yourself in so many ways. And so you will get that job. You will reap what you sow. But you got to sow. You got to do the work. You got to put the elbow grease in. And it will pay off. But let me give you a piece of encouragement. Advice, or you might call it a warning. I wouldn't call it a warning. But again, the key to a prosperous and successful continuation of life is that you are forever learning. So even after you graduate and you get your degrees and you're satisfied in formal education, don't stop learning. Keep reading books. Keep seeking knowledge, information, understanding. Keep growing yourself. Keep learning, because the more you learn, the more you grow. The more you grow intellectually, the more your worldview expands. The more your worldview expands, the more opportunities will become visible to you and for you. I'm telling you, there is no limit. The only limit we have is the limitations we place upon ourselves. So challenge yourself. Be critical about yourself. Not harsh, but critical. Begin to adjust the issues in your life. Improve yourself. Make yourself more marketable. Don't be afraid to step out. And then if it's yours, take it.